Hello, my name is Natalie Strauss, and I am an English major, and my topic for today is Neo-Platonism in Gothic church architecture. To give a little background on Plotinus and his movement, he was a philosopher during the 3rd century, about 600 years after Plato had already passed away. And he was the creator of the philosophical movement of Neo-Platonism. It was a religious philosophy. He was building on a lot of the ideas from Plato, but they do differ on some. But one overreaching one that they both definitely agree on was that they believed in the One as the originator of all things, transcendent above all, which we will talk about in just a minute. Down below, you can see that there are actually surprisingly quite a few ideas that coincide from this movement with Gothic cathedrals and their architecture. So I'll be getting into a few of those. But first, a little mini lesson on Gothic architecture. It originated during the Middle Ages, kind of from the 12th to 16th centuries, and they were rooted in French architecture, but the style spread all across Europe, although I wasn't very inclusive because all of these pictures are actually of cathedrals that are just in France, but oh well. Some key stylistic elements of these churches are pointed arches, columns, flying buttresses, towers and spires, stained glass windows, floor plans, lighting, and that is just to name a few, because these churches are absolutely filled to the brim with even more. The One. The One is a central idea to Plotinus's philosophical system as well as Plato's. It is the fundamental starting point of all things, and it is utterly transcendent and beyond being. I have a hard time conceptualizing this topic, but it helps to break it down. So it could be described as the ultimate source. Like, this is the beginning of everything, but not God, not in the way we understand it. It is beyond our understanding. That goes for a lot of religions, though. You can try as much as you want to gain an understanding, but there's only so much that you will ever actually be able to understand and know. Unity, because everything started in one source, everything on this earth is kind of united in a way. Emanation, I'll be getting into this real soon, but it kind of goes with the idea of the hierarchy of realities, where the One is the top of the pyramid and things kind of emanate down. And then it revealed the goal of return. This is an idea that a lot of religions still use today, that after we pass away, the end goal is to return to the One, to wherever that may be. And this was a comforting belief for people, because it is a comfort to know that everything around us, everything in this world, can be seen through the lens of one metaphysical idea. It feels less huge and scary that way. But interestingly, pagan Neoplatonists were actually the originators, or they were not, maybe not the originators, but they were one of the first, and they were not creationists. They did not believe in a god per se. The One in their eyes was a source of almost like energy. It could not speak words and form them into reality. But we could say more modern Neoplatonists actually took a lot of the ideas from the movement and kind of adapted them for monotheistic religions like Christianity and Judaism, which is why we see a lot of overlap between them. As I mentioned, the first one that I'm going to speak about in terms of relating to the churches is the hierarchy of realities. Platonists believe that the material world is an imperfect reflection of a higher spiritual reality. So the One starts up here, and then it goes down to intellect, to the soul, to matter. This is very similar to Plato's view. And he believes that everything begins at the top, where it is perfect, pure, and real, capital R, real, and it emanates downwards, losing its perfection as it goes until we reach where we are today. As we as people try to gain understanding and learn more about ourselves and the world around us, we are attempting to transcend and go upwards up the pyramid. which is seen in the outward architecture of churches. They try to make this aspiration of transcending upwards through vertical spires and towers. If you look at this from a kind of a Christian standpoint, it kind of symbolizes the aspiration of the soul going up towards the divine. So they both sort of have either a mind or soul going upwards in belief. Robert Barron in Heaven and Stone and Glass actually talks about how he has seen people come in, and because of the vertical way everything is built, their heads are almost forced to look upwards, and they're almost forced to have like a moment of transcendence when they look in awe. And personally, I just wanted to know which was the tallest cathedral, and it ended up being the Ulm Minster Cathedral in Germany, standing at 530 feet tall. Wow. The second idea is the intellectual and mystical pursuits. Both Christians and philosophers of this movement both had the end goal of reaching intellectual transcendence, to understand the self and the world. And specifically, they had in the movement, they had this idea of mysticism, which in simple terms is you can't understand everything simply intellectually. There is at some point this moment where you just have to let go, be open, and it'll just kind of come to you, kind of through the soul, you could say. And I chose this picture of the allegory of the cave to kind of show this, because the little people that were in the cave all of their lives, they thought they were intellectually transcendent, like they had reached the top, they understood the one, they knew. And it wasn't until one of them escaped and had to fight against his own ideals and open himself up to the world of knowledge, he's the only one who got the true, well, not all of the knowledge, but he did transcend higher than the others. This is seen in the way that churches kind of facilitate this almost academic, educational environment. They wanted to make it to where people could come and sit and reminisce and ruminate on things and try to get some inner reflection. Like when you walk in a church, the outside world is out. It is just you, your thoughts, and the symbolism around you when you walk in. Robert Barron, again, mentions that in Notre Dame in Paris, they kind of have like a good example of this, in that on the ground floor, there's a lot of nature iconography everywhere, like plants and trees and vines. And he says that on top of these columns, there's ivy, and it kind of represents the forest. So you are walking on the ground level. And when you look up, you see animals and beings being portrayed, which is life forms. And then as you look even higher, you see the cosmos, the universe painted and done in mosaics and such. Like your eyes just going up the wall, you're looking through transcendence, like you are transcending, you could say. And even outside, there is symbolism and things that are conducive to this movement. Robert Barron, again, my holy grail for this assignment, talked about the flying buttresses outside and how they looked like oars coming out of a boat, like in Noah's Ark, which is interesting because a boat is something that moves forward. Like Noah was moving forward in new knowledge and a new life. And it's like the entire church is just this stepping stone to learning more. It's simply the conduit. This idea, I kind of mixed two different aspects. Neo-Platonism and Christianity both use symbolism a lot, that this is abundantly clear. And I sort of mixed this with the idea of the influence on Christian thought, because monotheistic religions borrowed a lot from Neoplatonism. And I found this quote that I thought worked really well. It says, "Symbols function as crossroads, as junctures that allow the soul to trace its path back to its origins. For Neoplatonists, the process of interpreting symbols involves a complex mixture of traditional lore and radical self-expression or self-reflection." I found this one interesting because you're taking the symbols, the things that you see in these churches and in life that have been here for hundreds of years, and you mix in your own experiences, what's in your society, and you put that together, and it culminates into this self-reflection that is completely unique to you. And mind blown. I found that really cool. And you can see this Christian influence in symbolism throughout every aspect of Gothic churches because they are filled to the brim with them. Even the floor plans were taken into consideration. As you can see that they build it into a cross. You can't even tell that from looking outside, but every aspect was taken into account, even if you're not looking at a specific symbol on the wall or anything, just walking to the bathroom. I mean, you're walking on a cross, you're walking on a symbol. That's crazy. And then light was manipulated to create symbolism and spirituality. Robert Barron, my bestie, talked again about how he's seen people walk in, and churches like to make their entrances sort of cave-like so that you're blinded when you first walk in, and then when your eyes adjust, you are just mind-boggled. It's a transcending experience. I keep using that word, but it's the only way to describe it. These are powerful symbols in the community. And then the last one I wanted to speak about was the importance of aesthetic beauty. Neo-Platonism and Gothic architecture both placed a very heavy importance on beauty as a reflection of divinity, reflection being a very important word here. Plato and Plotinus actually saw differently on this topic. Plato thought that art was just like a mere copy, or an attempted copy, you could say in modern terms, a cheap copy of, you could say, the realm of ideals. Like, he doesn't think that you can reach that. There is no point. Whereas Plotinus kind of sees it more as a reflection. It emanates down. It's not the thing. It's not even close to perfect, but it is similar. And he sees it more as like an inspiration, to get you to thinking transcending thoughts, like your environment. This is seen in the beautiful stained glass windows, which I think encapsulate almost all of the things that I've talked about in this video. I can't even put into words what I feel about stained glass windows. So I used my buddy Robert Barron again, and he had these couple quotes. He said, "The play of light, color, harmony, and balance, all enveloped in the perfection of the circle, establishes an aesthetic energy which can, it seems, be described only in musical terms. The especially arresting beauty of the rose window is meant as a sacrament and anticipation of the beatific, I can't, vision of God's beauty that would occur at the end of time." He brings in a few things here: the light and colors, the symbolism and the environment coming in. The perfect circle is, I didn't talk about this, but geometry, the perfect circle, the number of things in here. You find numerals and patterns everywhere in these churches. If you look at each individual little stained glass window, you'll see an entire story in there. Like, you could look at each one and learn more. It just encapsulates everything. It's just gorgeous. We've hit the conclusion. Lessons I've learned. I learned quite a bit here. First and foremost is the most obvious, and that is Neoplatonism and Plato, a review. I knew next to nothing about this topic before I studied it. I saw Gothic churches and architecture and immediately put in my request for that one without even really thinking about it because I was so excited about it. But it was really interesting learning more about a specific realm of philosophy that actually relates to architecture. I found that kind of crazy. I never had thought to put those together. The details of the Gothic churches, I mean, we all know, covered in details everywhere. But to sit there and take each individual one and put it through a philosophical lens is crazy. Like, I want to sit and just learn about every little decision that was made into making this church and think about it through this lens now. I grew up Christian, and seeing what was taken from Neoplatonism is extremely interesting. And the idea of the one being like not really entity, like God, like it doesn't have benevolence or evil, it simply is. Found that extremely intriguing and almost kind of comforting in a way. Robert Barron, he's in all caps because this was, I don't know if it's because I read the whole thing at 3 a.m. and I was crazy and delirious, but I felt like I was transcending just reading this. I wish I could like write in it and highlight it in it, but I loved this book. I kind of want to reread it again. I feel like there was so much more to learn and so much more I wanted to think about, but I was doing a project, so I couldn't. And then the importance of aesthetics. My environment has always affected my mood and my thoughts, and I knew that there was a whole school of thought on it, but to look at that through a specific lens like this, it just adds another layer to it that I found really interesting. So yeah, that was my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.